Steve Gamache here with another Chef Knives to Go quick look product review, and this time we're looking at a line under the Yahiko name that Mark has brought in. This is the white number 2 Nashiji Nakiri 165mm model. The core steel on this line of knives is Shidogami or white paper number 2 reactive high carbon steel from Hitachi. And the heat treat they shoot for, these are done by hand, so it's not a scientific, but it's what they shoot for is about 61 to 62 Rockwell on that core steel. The construction is 3 layers, so on either side of that core steel there's a soft stainless cladding. And on the site they mentioned that it doesn't cover the spine, but on this one it looks like it probably covers the spine. So if it doesn't cover the spine on your particular model and you see some exposed core steel, just remember that is reactive, unlike the stainless cladding, which is low reactivity. This has a really cool Nashiji or pear skin kind of mottled finish on it. We'll get a close-up look at that. The dimensions and weights on these will vary a little bit from knife to knife since they're hand-hammered and handmade. So the weight on this one's 169 grams or 6.0 ounces. Edge length about 165 on the edge, which I measure from the tip of the heel known as the chin all the way to the front where the curve kind of starts. They are about 6.5 inches. Overall length about 13.3 millimeters or 12.3 inches. And then these are fairly stiff blades, I should say very stiff, so they've got rather thick spines coming out of the handle, but they're ground really thin at the edge. They're really nice performers. So this one is about 3.75 millimeter coming out of the handle above the back of the blade, and that could be anywhere from 375 to 4 just based on some of the other knives I've had in this group. This does thin out pretty quick, and about halfway down the blade I measured that about 2.35 millimeters. And then it thins up even more a little bit towards the tip. But it's a stiff, confidence-inspiring Nakiri, no doubt. The blade height's about 52.2 at the back of the blade, and then about halfway down it's about 50.5 millimeters. And the handle on these, it's nothing fancy, but it's a well-executed handle. It's an octagonal ambidextrous hoe wood with a buffalo horn ferrule. This particular handle has really smooth fit and finish between the ferrule and the wood. It's very, very smooth. And they've got a nice, pretty tight handle install. I almost always put some kind of sealer on the end of the handle there where the wood meets just to keep the moisture out of there, but it's pretty tight handle install. Handle's pretty light on this, so that brings the balance point forward a bit, which is actually good for the Nakiri in my opinion, because you want some of that chopping power, so there's your balance point. And for me, this is ever so slightly in front of my pinch grip, so if you got bigger hands it might be right on the money for your pinch grip, but gives you a little bit of chopping power, so this knife does have some mass to it. The handle circumference is about 3 inches right here where the ferrule meets the wood, pretty standard size handle. And the fit and finish on these is just very well done. So let's take a close-up look. So you can see the finish on these is cool. It's got some texture and dimension to the Nashiji or pear skin finish. It's a little bit less smooth than something like Gihei Blue number 2 or Masakage Yuki. So it's got a little more texture to it, which I find very interesting. And you can see the cladding line. In fact, this has a neat way they ground this. It's almost like it's got an extra layer. I don't think so, but it's just a really cool look. You can see that extra finish layer on the grind line where the cladding meets the core steel. So it's got a frosted finish on the blade road. These have a pretty nice edge on the box. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Seems like it's pretty close to a 50-50 grind on these. You've got some hand-chiseled kanji that's well executed, although it's hidden a little bit from in the pear skin finish, the Nashiji finish. Spine is polished and rounded, and also the choil into the neck here is polished and rounded. So you've got a really well-finished knife. It's pretty much ready to rock and roll right out of the box. The profile on these is very, very flat, and you can see they're thin at the edge. Let's take a look at it on our cutting board. I have not used the Nakiri knives from this line. Whoops, gotta get my board around correct here. I've used some of the other ones, and based on those, the performance on this should be top-notch. The other ones are thin at the edge, really good performers, and I really don't see any reason why this one shouldn't be the same. So if you're looking for a very flat Nakiri, which this is, there's not any real belly to it. You do have the rounded tip, so you can do short rocking on product if you want to do that. But these aren't really made for rocking, they're made for chopping. But it's a pretty flat profile, as you can see. So just a very impressive, well-crafted line of knives. So if you want a Nakiri that's stiff, got some chopping power, thin at the edge for performance, these are really, really nice. So this is the Yahiko Shirogami number 2 Nashiji Nakiri 165mm knife.